Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this edition of the Flex Uncensored Podcast. I am honored to be guest hosting on behalf of Jamie Russo. We are here joined by the wonderful, affable, and handsome Giovanni Palavicini and our most prestigious guest, Miss Annie Draper. Annie, thank you for joining us.
Thank
You
you.
practice that in the mirror.
I was going to say, I love his podcast voice. It's kind of soothing. Like you could do some podcasts that just like put people to sleep in like a really good way, like a
I was
calm.
Welcome to Masterpiece Theater.
Thank you. That's exactly what I've first thought of. All right,
I was
sorry.
channeling my
I've
Ira
already
Glass.
taken us off track. Let's go.
This is pretty much what's going to be for the next hour. So let's
Okay.
just roll with it. Annie, thank you again for taking time out of your very, very busy day to speak with us today. And just for those of us who may be listening who don't know who you are, would you mind giving us an introduction?
Yeah, of course. My name is Annie Draper, as Kurt mentioned. I work for a company called Hines, named Hines. We are a large real estate developer that has development and property management assignments across the globe in about 230 markets. We are a privately owned company and we've been around since the 1950s. So there's a long storied history of Hines and many markets around the globe. And I specifically, though, focus on our Flex product. I've been in the world of Flex Office for almost 20 years now, which is pretty hard to say out loud and admit. But through that time, I've worn a lot of different hats at another real estate company called Carr, which is another real estate developer, a smaller family fund based in Washington, D.C. And so I've spent my whole career focusing on this industry and brought that tenure over to Hines to help them think about their Flex office stack. So excited to be here chatting with you two gents.
And importantly, you moved from DC to muggy Houston. How's that move been?
Well, to be fair, DC is also fairly muggy. I think actually I say this all the time to people and not everyone believes me, but I think that there are more days of the year that you can comfortably be outside in Houston than Washington, DC. Because today it was, I think when I woke up, it was in the 50s and it's going to get into the mid 70s and it will probably stay like that forever now until we start getting hot again. So the winter months are really where we shine. So come visit me between like now and March. And then once rodeo hits in March, go back to wherever you come from.
Well said. Well, you said you wore a bunch of hats at Carr. So why don't we get a little more detailed on what exactly kind of how you got into the business, kind of what you did, what you enjoyed, what you'd say your biggest skill sets are, and then ultimately want to discuss how you ended up at Carr. At Hines, but let's start with Carr.
Car's funny. I originally was intending to go to law school, and I told my parents that that was not my path. And my mom was very worried about what my path would actually be then. And she ended up connecting with a company that was helping lost souls, like recent college grads or soon to be college grads that didn't have direction, help figure out a path for them, specifically in the world of customer service and sales. And I have always been a people person. I've always liked to talk. I've always liked to interact with individuals. And so my mom connected me with this organization that she got connected with through her job. And that company, interestingly enough, had an office space at Carr. And they were basically like I don't know, like a recruiter for lack of a better word, but they did sales training as part of their recruiting process. So they ended up placing me at Carr. And I started as kind of like I don't know what the names have changed dramatically, but not the manager, the number two person at a location. And I eventually worked my way up and I stayed at Carr for 13 years, again, wearing a bunch of different hats. So I eventually managed locations. I then managed multiple locations. I then managed a region. And then I transitioned from that into thinking about new and different business lines for us. So outside of our traditional co-working platform, how might we take on property management? How might we think about spec suites and how do we service them? How do we increase the service revenue across our locations? I was sort of assigned to a bunch of different interesting projects that I sort of got to define on my own or, with leadership from Carr, figure out what direction I want to go. So that it was interesting because it took me in a lot of different places and spaces and thinking about flex outside of just the conventional co-working mold. And that was fun and exciting for me. So the journey of getting there was definitely not. I didn't intend on getting into real estate, but I'm very glad that I was able to land in a real estate firm and ultimately, again, use my skills around people and around sales and around, all the different things around operations that I really enjoy doing, thinking creatively, innovating products, and continue to develop that there at Carr and now at Hines.
And yeah, it's funny. When I first started the industry, I picked up some of the collaterals that you were putting out from the Work Ready business and reading it through. This is
RIP
eight
Work
years.
Ready. That was a great product.
I mean, 8 years ago, it was so far ahead of its time. And looking at the offering that you're putting together for Hines, it's still very, very cutting edge. So, I mean, for those of us who are maybe uneducated on what you're working on today, maybe we could just talk a little bit about what Here by Hines looks like, what the square looks like, where the differentiators are, and where you see this going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that journey did start at Carr with, again, Carr had their co-working product, which was Carr Workspaces, but they wanted to spin out into other ways that they could continue. I mean, in the world of co-working, right? Like traditionally, and I know WeWork kind of broke this mold a bit, but once you hit a certain size or a certain tenure, you typically don't go to co-working anymore. And Carr wanted to extend that relationship. We did own a lot of the buildings that we were in. And so is there a way that serves as a pipeline to convert them or graduate them into other products? And that was the original thesis of Work Ready. And I think, coming over to Carr, it's the same exact thesis, is that, you know, in the world of real estate, conventionally, or for the past however many years, there's been one product, which is a long-term lease. And obviously co-working has broken that mold a bit. But at Hines, we wanted to provide a similar path for people to grow, whether you're a small company who's looking to come into a space and then grow, you're a large enterprise company who is coming to a market for the first time. But the intent was that we have multiple different products that service different types of clients where they are and where they need to be. And so, the intent was, at Hines, we built the Square, which is our in-house co-working product, but we've now graduated that into something that is more holistic, not just a single product. Because if we're trying to solve a problem of the real estate industry has had one product, a long-term lease, now just adding a secondary product doesn't necessarily move the needle, but still not hitting all of our different customers where and when they need to be. And so at Hines, we're taking the approach of creating multiple products that fit within the spectrum of flexibility, if you will. So, that could be something as short term as traveling to a market and needing touchdown space for a day or for a week. It could be am trying out a new market and I've got 20 people and I need space for 12 months, or I'm a startup company and I just need space for myself, but room to grow as I continue to expand my organization. Or it could be that I need space for 125 people, but I only want it for 12 months. So what are the different options that you have for me? And Hines first started, down this path probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And a lot of it was that we work with some of the largest corporations across the globe, providing them office space in a lot of our different buildings. And when they needed anything less than 10 years, they no longer came to Hines. Hines was not a solution provider for them. And Hines is in the customer business. We are in the customer solution business where we want to provide solutions for them. And so Hines set out on this journey to come up with additional products that could provide solutions for our customers. And that's really, at the end of the day, if you look at kind of the Square umbrella and the branding that we're pulling together, it's providing these multiple product types for customers that is, we used to say less than 10 years. Now it's kind of less than 7 years. A lot of buildings will do long-term leases that are 7 years. And so if I need something less than 7 years, what's the product that you can give me? And so it's creating that infrastructure, creating that platform that delivers those different products and experiences for our customers, again, meeting them where they are in their journey.
There's still only about 4 or 5 large landlords like yourselves that are out here doing it. In your conversations with like the stakeholders across the various different portfolios of companies, what have been some of the challenges that you've had in convincing some of those believers in the 10-year lease, it's my way or the highway, into thinking of the future, into thinking of how this approach and why this approach is better than their way of doing it?
Kurt, I don't even know who you are. Why are you so serious?
I don't.
Because I'm just afraid of the next question that you're going to ask.
Podcast Kurt. I don't think it's that people don't believe in it. I think the reality, and we were joking about Gio's not an operator. A lot of landlords should not be operators. Like, being an operator is very challenging. It's very expensive to build a platform. It takes a lot of overhead and structure and infrastructure and things that have to go into it. So I don't think it's that owners are, this is a 10-year lease or hit the road. It's that they don't want to be the ones that are providing it. And so in those different scenarios, I think partnership models work really well. And we've seen a lot of that happen in our industry. And I think that should continue. I talk all the time to some of my counterparts in large real estate organizations. And the reality is that if you don't have the scale or you don't have the infrastructure already, then it doesn't make a lot of sense to build it out, because, you have to have a certain, number of locations to typically have the scale that's required to make the money where it's worth it. Like, real estate companies, they put money into investments as, they're fiduciary managers at the end of the day. And if you're taking money out of other opportunities to put it into a co-working platform, it's not a very profitable, solution. And it doesn't make sense for a lot of operators, a lot of real estate companies. They should partner, and they should continue down that model. So I don't think it's fair to state that they're not interested in it. They're just not interested in building out a platform to deliver it themselves in-house. There's a handful of companies that fit the mold of, they have property management. So like, a lot of what we've built leverages our infrastructure of property management. I maintain a very, very, very small overhead, where it's like, we did a gap analysis of where is our property management today, what needs to happen to operate these Flex products, and what are the teams that we need to bring on to support property management. So, 80% of our infrastructure exists through property management, 20% was built specific to Flex. And then the other thing is scale, like putting in, JLL is famous for the 30%. They didn't mean 30% is co-working. 30% is within that Flex spectrum that I mentioned. But do you have enough buildings and enough markets that require or can support some type of Flex product? Again, it has to hit a certain market threshold, and not, those two things combined, it narrows down the number of real estate companies that could and should build something in-house.
So, question, you said your counterparts, right? It's been my experience. I mean, like, who do you consider, and obviously not specific names, but I mean, what does a counterpart look like? In my experience, there was one or two landlords. Actually, you were one of them. Your predecessor was one of them, that were in strategic roles, but really weren't making any decisions as it came to Flex, right? I think some of the larger landlords put people in positions like the ones you're in now, just to say there was someone there, but never made any moves, decisions, because they weren't allowed to. So, are you seeing more of these landlords see the need and opportunity for this, or kind of what are you seeing out there as you interact with your counterparts?
Well, I think one of the things to remember is that when you say like a landlord, like Hines is considered to be a merchant build, where we build buildings and we stabilize them, and we typically try to sell all or most of our stake in that building. So we don't retain ownership. And so, I think this is your question, Gio, and tell me if I'm wrong. But the problem is that it's not that like I can pick up the phone and say, let's put Flex in this building. Jeff Hines can't even pick up the phone, or Laura Hines can't even pick up the phone and say, let's put Flex in this building. We have to go and convince the asset managers and the property managers, and they have to be convinced enough to then talk to the owner, and the owner has to be convinced enough to talk to the lender, and the lender has to say this is okay. So there's a whole entire ecosystem that exists in our world. And, you have to remember, different real estate companies are set up in different ways. Again, thinking about the fiduciary management structure, like where do they sit in that? Are they a fund manager? Are they where are they in the investment profile? And I think that changes a lot. Like Hines has a number of different funds that are going after different investment profiles. And so is it a core fund? A core fund, you have a hard time, putting flex into those buildings because they are looking at, they're basically just trying to get like a fixed income on that building that's stabilized and that is a long-term play. Not to say that that's not going to change. And even those buildings need some type of flex. Like all those buildings need amenity space and conferencing. And do you consider that to be flex? That's probably a whole nother question. And so, but I think like at the end of the day, that's one thing to remember is that all of these different owners that are out there they have different plays that they're doing, like different fiduciary responsibilities that they maintain. They have different structures. Like, are they regional with kind of like a region up mentality? Are they top down mentality and like somebody can pick up the phone and say, we're putting flex here? And I think all of that goes into the ability to grow and expand and add these new and different product types. And that's, honestly, that's one of the reasons why we've continued to build out our product stack with asset light. And I know asset light in our world also means different things, but it's like, if you think about the Square Collection, which is the most recent product that we launched, it's taking all of our existing amenity spaces, conference spaces, like, lounge environments and networking them together. So a client in a building can, using their Here by Hines app, they can go and they can look at space in their building, but they can go look at space in other markets as well. I mean, it's like a United Club Pass or something. And that's, again, this isn't new to the world of co-working. Like that is a basic fundamental table stake in co-working. But in the world of real estate, where each of these buildings are owned by different owners and they sit within different funds, it's a really complex thing to do, to think about how we now bring these buildings together instead of operating in silos. And historically, they've operated in silos. We bring them together, but I'm bringing together existing infrastructure, existing space. I'm not building anything new. I'm not asking for a few $100s a foot to build out amenity space. I'm saying, let's take your existing and make it better, make it more available to all of our clients. And then on the spec suites, it's the same thing. All of our asset managers across the globe are building out spec suites. We know that clients want it and they like it. So is there a way that we can be smarter about those spec suites and have more of a platform that starts with marketing, continues to sales, and then provides services that's existing infrastructure? We already have approval from the owners to build these spaces out. Is there a better way that we can work as one united front at Hines to deliver those better, faster, with more services that then transact at a higher, rent for different clients based on where they are? And it's just a question mark. I know that it worked at Carr. We built it out successfully at Carr. Now we're still kind of playing around with that idea at a large global real estate company to see how and if this could work.
Yeah. So I think two great things that came out of that. I beat you, Kurt. One is I think people that aren't in the industry as far as real estate go understand how complex these landlords / real estate companies really are, right? With the amount of different funds, the amount of different asset managers, how many different levels there are in decision making. I think people think it's easy, right? Like it's one person making the decision. I think that's one part of it. The other part of it, you asked, depends what you consider flex, right? And I'll tell you, Liz absolutely hates the fact that I use the flexible workspace because she thinks everything's co-working, right? But to me, flexible workspace covers executive suites, co-working, event space, spec suites falls into that category, right? There's so many things that fall under all that, which is flexible, right? Because it's constantly moving and changing. I mean, how is your squared model? I mean, are you overseeing the spec suite plan too that y'all are deploying in certain areas, or are y'all even deploying one? Because as I travel the country, I see spec suites moving faster than anything else right now, other than like 55 square foot spaces inside of co-working.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I would love, I love Liz and I value her opinion. I'd love to have a discussion because I don't agree with her. We do ourselves a disservice if we're calling spec suites co-working, because that's not what people think of when they think of co-working. They think of a very specific product type. And I think spec suites could be treated as co-working in certain instances, but for the most part, they're not. So right now, yes, I mean, spec suites are being built by a lot of our buildings, owners, asset managers, et cetera, all over the place. And I don't have anything to do with that. But what we are trying to do, and really I mean, we're doing a lot of research. Like my job at Hines started in the Office of Innovation. And while I did move over to our management services division, which basically was a proclamation by Hines that co-working is no longer innovative, it's kind of like table stakes for us now. The reality is that I'm constantly looking at ways that we can take lessons learned from our world of operating these flex spaces and apply it to different models at Hines. And so that's no different than our spec suites. Is there a way that we can take our marketing, for example? If you think about how a spec suite is typically marketed, it's typically marketed by brokers, and those brokers are usually putting them on the back burner because it's small space or second gen space that they're trying to get the other trophy space leased in a portfolio. And so is there a way that you can take how co-working does a digital marketing platform and apply that to spec suites? And I don't know the answer. Maybe the answer is that's not how people transact in those spaces. But my argument has been that if we do apply some of that methodology, that we are getting additional leads in that could transact. The other thing is that these spec suites, and it varies a lot owner to owner, but a lot of the owners are looking for 5-7 year leases. And we've had to go to them and say, look, I can get you a 12-month deal with a premium, but you have to be comfortable with that. Your lender has to be comfortable with that. What's the paperwork that they're signing? Is it a license agreement or is it a short form lease? And so you've got to go through all of that legwork to have the conversation with them. So then we can put it into the marketing platform. Our sales team can sell it and we can operate it, but it's operating at this blended product of co-working versus, spec suite. And so in that instance, maybe Liz is right. Maybe it is just co-working. If you're operating for 12 months, that's fully serviced, is that co-working, or is it a service spec suite? I don't know. That's why I like to just, bring it all under the flexible spectrum, because it's both, I think, or can be. And that's the interesting thing, is it's this concept of consultative sales. And I said this from the beginning, at the end of the day, Hines is doing this because we care about our customer. We want to be able to provide multiple product types, meeting our customer where they are in their journey. And so a spec suite could be co-working if it's fully serviced for 12 months and they're paying a co-working premium, or it could be a spec suite if it's 7 years and they don't have any services added in. And so it's both. And I think that's an interesting situation where we now have a product where our sales team can be consultative. They can talk to them about what the customer is looking for, and we can customize a product that meets them where they want to be. And that, to me, is the ultimate goal. So I don't have oversight over all of our spec suites today. I don't even know if I'll have oversight over all of our spec suites ever. But what we are trying to do is create more of a platform that supports our project teams and giving our customers more buying options.
All right, Kurt, you're running out of time.
I was just thinking battery juice. I might have to go get my cord.
Should we take a pause for Annie to plug in? Because that would be bad.
Okay, just give me 1 second.
All right, Kurt. You're losing time because I'm about to get on the personal side. So.
Oh, okay.
It's going to happen anyways.
I know.
And we got plenty of time. We'll come back.
Yeah. I was thinking that I think it's a great story. I mean, effectively, she stood up this entire business and kind of grabbed the business by the horns and dragged it to where it needed to be. So it's massively
dragging for sure. That's the beauty of it, or the hard part of it. I mean, she's had to drag some people along with it.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to give her the opportunity. I'm sure she can hear us. So, Annie, want to give you the opportunity just to speak to your success and speak to what you were able to create, Oh, change the background too. That's perfect.
Well, yeah.
Part 2.
Guys.
Yeah.
I had to plug in.
No, it's all good. I was saying just like giving you a platform to just talk about how successful you've been doing that. Like that's really I wanted to make sure that we did that. Um, so if there's anything else,
Okay.
leading the witness here, obviously, is there anything you want me to point to specifically? Maybe the rolling out of the software, because it is first ever to bridge different ownership groups and agree to make things available. I mean, do you want me to bring that up or?
Yeah,
Oh,
I could
it's
dive
all
into
right.
that a bit
You
more.
already brought it up, but while she thinks about what she wants to say, I'm gonna take her a different direction. 2 years ago, we said I do in the most epic party in Mexico City, and we can't wait for all the amazing years ahead of us. Cheers to a lifetime of love.
Oh, isn't that
So
nice?
we have to talk about. I'm partial to Mexico City. I was born there. Tell me how much you love that city and how amazing your wedding was. People don't, not everyone knows this story, so you got to talk about it.
Okay. Mexico City is my favorite city on the earth. And I'm not like I grew up going there. I'm not like you or I had the pleasure of being born there. I actually first came across it in January of 2020. And at that point, I just moved back to Houston no, I moved to Houston for the very first time. And I moved here obviously for Hines. And so it was not difficult convincing my wife, but it was definitely at that time we weren't married and we strayed away from where we were intending to go. When I first applied for these jobs at Hines, I assumed that we'd stay in DC, and I was offered the position under the assumption that I would relocate to Houston, which again was not something that I originally contemplated or discussed with my wife. So then I had to come to her and say, here's the deal. I think this is a great opportunity and a dream job, but it requires a relocation to Houston. And so I came like, I like to sandwich things, right? It's like the good with the good with the
Yeah.
bad. So I said, hey, there's really awesome things that we could do, explore this whole new part of the country and go to fun places like Mexico City, which is like a 2+ hour flight from Houston.
Yeah.
So her birthday's in January. We moved here in January. And the very first trip that we took for her birthday was to Mexico City and just fell in love with it. So it is one of the most incredible cities. It's truly built on hospitality. So our whole entire industry that's also built on hospitality, go to Mexico. You'll learn a lot from the people there, but it's just a warm and open environment. The temperature is always great all year round. It's in the middle of the country, and so it's not like I feel like most Americans go to the coasts of Mexico, and this is smack dab in the middle, very high altitude, but it gives this really unique environment that has a lot of lush green parks, really great weather throughout the year, and just an awesome place to go. So we fell in love with it. COVID obviously hit, so we didn't travel there as frequently as we wanted to. But when we were thinking about a place to get married, it hit all of our check boxes. It was relatively easy for people to get to. It's very affordable once you get there. It's a culture based on hospitality and food, which are two things that are near and dear to my wife's heart and mine. And so it became a place that we fell in love with before our wedding and even more so after. And it was the most epic party that's ever been thrown. My favorite thing
Well,
was the our wedding planner was like, okay, so do you want the 3 a.m. or the 5 a.m. package? I was like, I'm sorry, for what? And they're like, well, do you want the party to end at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m.? I was like, the Americans are going to die. So I really was pushing for the 5 a.m. And my wife was like, nobody's going to make it. So we did
no
3
one's
a.m. and
making for menudo. No one's staying up for menudo at 5 a.m.
no, no. So, but we did 3 a.m. and there were still a handful of people that were on the dance floor up until that moment. So it was fun.
I still remember when you were planning it and you're like, this planner is going to, she thinks I have a blank check to just spend on this wedding because you're like, she's wanting to do all this crazy stuff. I'm like, welcome to our culture.
Crazy. They wanted me to have like these wild parasols that we were like walking around the city with. And we did still do some pretty crazy things that were definitely not part of the original budget. But looking back, I wouldn't have changed a single thing.
Wow. All right,
Well,
Kurt.
Giovanni, have you contracted the same planner for the GWA Immersive?
Yeah, can't afford that one. I've contracted the EOS Javier Laura Cantu program, so I don't know what that is, but
I'm
it's
sure
not.
she's great too.
Yeah, but I think it ends at 5 p.m. All right, Kurt. Back to your original line of questioning.
Well, no, you make it seem like I'm interrogating the poor girl. Let's see. Which one of your sites is your favorite?
I mean, we were just talking about it. I just got a chance to tour our new Torre de Angel location in Mexico City that literally looks, so there's in the Reforma neighborhood of Mexico City, which is kind of like the central business district. There's this Angel de Independencia, and I'm sorry, Gio, for butchering your language,
Okay,
but
perfect.
it's this big, huge gold statue, and it's the angel of independence. And our newest location sits on the circle, and there's an outdoor terrace that literally looks at the angel. And to me, I think that is my favorite one thus far. I mean, each one has its very interesting, unique characteristics. I think that's one of the things about Hines is that we have a playbook. We've got design standards that we built out for our locations, but because the nature of our business, we aren't as prescriptive with our design and the spaces. They fit much more to the character of the building and the submarket that they're in, as opposed to like they're all exactly the same or designed in similar design intents. And I think Mexico City really is unique in that our location up in Polanco, that was probably my favorite when we built it. It's got really, really fun characteristics that we did with some of the mullions around the doors and just like small little design details that really bring it into Mexico City. Like you don't feel like you're standing in a co-working space from America that came to Mexico City. You feel like you're standing in a Mexico City co-working space. And I think Torre de Angel does that as well. It also has this incredible outdoor terrace, and that to me I think is my favorite right now. But I don't know, they all have very fun characteristics that you can point to and say like this is my favorite because, but right now it's definitely Torre de Angel.
How about the New York one? How are you liking the way that turned out? Because y'all recently took over an asset there,
I
and
know.
obviously
I feel like I'm
it's
like hurting the feelings of all of my other locations.
but no, but the reality is, I
All
mean,
listening.
they continue evolving, right? You learn new things, you implement them,
Yeah.
and I think that that's part of it, right? But I mean, the New York one's different because you have taken on someone else's
Yeah.
foundations, right? And try to do your best. And as we all know that do this, it's not easy to, I mean, once there's a actual layout, it's hard to change that layout without spending significant money. So you're kind of trying to fix
Yeah.
and work with someone else's foundational product.
Yeah, I mean that one was a big challenge for us because of that. We took over a location. I think the thing I love about that, again, I can pull characteristics and like I think we did a really great job with that design. I love the art program that we've got there. There's a lot of really unique characteristics about it, but it's part of this incredible portfolio. So it's part of a 13 building portfolio that's about 6.5 million square feet. And so because of that, you come into 205 Hudson, but you get access to a lot of other things. And talking about the product mix, like that's one of the places where we're really piloting the spec suite program. And so, we have leads that are coming in, that could be for 80, 100 plus desks. And we have multiple products that we can sell to them. So I think that that's really unique. But I mean, you're right, Gio, taking on an operator's space where they have kind of their design intent and their design standards and like even their IT and their infrastructure and like everything about it. I mean, it was a vintage 2017 operator and they didn't even have Zoom capabilities in every conference room. So, and who in 2017, that was probably a standard. And so we had to go back. And I think there are a lot of things that you didn't necessarily see in terms of some of the acoustics that we had to change, some of the cabling and the AV IT infrastructure that we had to change. We had to do a lot of work with the HVAC to make it more comfortable to be in that space. So there's things that like you can't see from the naked eye that we had to change to make that space better suited for the type of clients that we are bringing in. But there was a lot of that had to happen. And then you just layer on top of the design. And so, yeah, we didn't, I would say that the product mix isn't perfect because it was a vintage 2017 co-working space, and what our clients want today versus what they wanted then is pretty different. But, we've worked with it and it's been a really incredible location for us. That the appetite for that particular location and again being part of a broader portfolio has been incredible. The market's received it really well, both like individual companies that have come to us, as well as brokers who are very happy that Hines is launching this product in New York City. So that's been a really fun one to work on.
We spoke a
Any
lot
new
about the
ones you can?
space. We spoke about the technology on this conversation, but one thing we haven't spoken about is the scent. Is the collection scent separate to the regular Hines managed scent?
No, all of the scent at all Hines buildings is now the same. And so whether you're in our co-working product, whether you're in one of the amenity spaces as part of the collection, or whether you're in the lobby of any other building, we have a standard Heinz scent across all of our buildings now that smells the same.
And what people Kurt out the scent.
Wait, sorry, say that one more time.
Kurt actually wears that scent. It's his cologne.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna gift you both the cologne of Heinz after this podcast. So
I was fishing. I was fishing. It seems like I landed the fish there, Gio.
Well
That's what
done.
I wanted.
Well done, sir. So can you announce, you working on any projects that you can announce?
I mean, we've talked a lot about a lot of them. Like right now, we rolled out the collection, the Square collection, to the broader market. So we're live in, I don't know, like 15 or so buildings. And we plan to bring another 6+ on between now and the end of the year. And then from there, it's continuing to grow. So looking at different strategic markets where we need to have access to space and building that out. I talked about the spec suites. And so there's a heavy focus right now on that, trialing it out in our Hudson Square property, but then being able to expand it beyond that. And then obviously we're always looking for places where we can build out our co-working product. So we've got a couple new locations that are building for 2025 and beyond. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing that I'm ready to announce today, but I'm not bored. I can tell you that much.
Speaking of bored, what do you do outside of work for fun with Lauren?
Oh, I mean, our favorite thing to do is travel and to enjoy different cultures, definitely through like the food and the people that we meet there. And so that has been something that we do quite a bit. We like to throw dinner parties. I love cooking. Cooking is like one of my biggest passions. And so doing, whether it's like just a weeknight get together with friends or a large, more intimate gathering, like on a weekend, we love throwing dinner parties. We've got a little puppy dog. And so taking him out to the different parks in Houston is always a joy of ours. Like doing a picnic in one of the parks here is fun. So I don't know, there's a lot.
You ruined my next question. The next question was about the puppy. It's okay.
Truman, he's the greatest.
What do you love about it? I still remember when you got the pup. You were head over heels. Couldn't stop showing us pictures.
I still am. I know, I still am. What do I love about him? He's very snuggly. He is really, I mean, he's like an emotionally intelligent dog. And this is like when you have a golden doodle, they have like the poodle, so they're super smart, and a golden retriever, so they're very lovable. And he has all of that. Like he will literally know when something's wrong and will come and like sit on top of you, like just be as close to you as humanly possible. So he's a really great guy. He travels with us really well as well. So it's fun. We haven't taken him to Mexico City yet, but that will probably be our next destination with him, is to bring him to Mexico.
They definitely are a gift to us. Unfortunately, yeah. Kurt's allergic to dogs.
I am.
His biggest flaw, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, true. There's a couple more.
If only. Where's the next trip, Annie?
My next trip? I mean, the holidays are coming up, so friends and family. I don't have any big personal trips that are planned as of now, but I'll tell you, because of that, I'm getting really antsy and starting to look at the globe and figure out where we're going next. But right now, the immediate trips are my niece's first birthday, so Alabama, Thanksgiving, so probably North Carolina, and Christmas, so probably back to Alabama. So
all rich cultures.
Well,
that is true.
We can get our fix through Kloppenberg. He's in Japan right now.
I know. I've been week dying over his photos. Yeah. That's I did get a chance to travel there 2 years ago, and I loved it.
So look forward to that. So as far as your goals from a professional standpoint, I mean, obviously they're ongoing and shifting and changing. I mean, kind of what are your goals for the future? Not just what we were talking about, getting those other sites going, but just kind of everything you're learning and growing kind of what do you hope to achieve?
I mean, I think there's still a lot of work to be done. Like I said, I really look at if you think about what co-working does really well and how we can extract certain things from that and apply it into different business models at Hines. I think one of the next things that we're really looking to do is get more into kind of the amenity space management, but doing that like through monetizing spaces. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Like we have an entire experience platform, but how do we push that out, to more buildings, to more opportunities? I think there's the whole concept of like the level of service that exists within co-working doesn't necessarily exist in all of our buildings. Now, if we layer on the square and like we have our whole co-working platform, of course, that comes hand in hand with it. But is there a way for you to start providing this additional layer of service if there's no co-working space? So thinking about all the operational considerations there, that's also something that I've been thinking a lot about. It's wild that we're, planning for 2025 and beyond now, but that's where we're at. And so I'm starting to think about how these different components of co-working can be broken down and applied in different ways. And that's certainly something that's always on my mind.
Annie, on that note, for listeners that are maybe operators or maybe landlords themselves, is that service layer wrapper, do you think it's something that they can implement, or do you think that that's something that, because of the way that Hines is structured, you're maybe better positioned to offer that? Or is it something that truly can be deployed by another group? Because I think about that all the time too, because obviously if you're a traditional tenant in one of these buildings, at least in the buildings that I've worked in, sometimes it's pretty sterile. There's, a security guard who doesn't want you to be in that lobby. So he wants you to get through that lobby as fast as possible versus enjoying what could be a very beautiful space if a little bit of effort or a little bit of hospitality was applied. I mean, sorry, long way of asking a question, but have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think a lot about it. Like there can be a lot of lessons learned from our industry. Like look at what Industrious did with Nuveen. They've applied an entire layer of hospitality experience service across a portfolio. And Industrious is a large operator. They have a lot of things that are very special about them, but at the end of the day, they're a large operator. So you could take a small operator and provide something similar. As if you're working in the building and you're working with a landlord, is there a way that you can provide those additional services? I think, I would argue yes, depending. Like there's always an asterisk next to things, but I do think there's an opportunity there. So yeah, like I think, looking whether it's providing services to spec suites or providing an amenity and experience layer that sits on top of buildings that you already operate as an operator, like I think there's plenty of opportunity there that operators should be looking at.
I'd like to see a world where that becomes the norm, really, because you think about so many people that are so good at operating the four walls that they control. It's needed in the rest of the building, because if you're looking to book a room that's, God forbid, a bit bigger than the conference room that you have access to as a regular tenant elsewhere in the building, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. And I think it can be kind of complex. So if you have a property manager and then there's like a co-working manager and then there's an experience manager and then there's like, somebody different who's providing the app, it can be really cumbersome. So I think it's up to the asset managers to really think strategically about who they're bringing into the buildings to help operate. But there are operators that can help solve that. I said this at the very beginning, not every single owner could or should operate these spaces, and like, property managers that aren't necessarily set up to provide the layers of service and experience. So is there an opportunity there for, the co-working industry to step in? Like, I think the answer is yes.
I opened the conversation with how Work Ready was well off in the future when you were there. Looking at the market now, looking at what Hines is doing, are we where we should be? Are we close to it, or are we miles away?
It's a good question. I think it depends. I'd say that there are plenty of buildings and owners and lenders that are miles away. But I also think, with the amount of, leases that are coming up in the next 36 months, like I think that the ones that are miles away are starting to scratch their heads and think about what could or should they do with the space that's coming back to them, or, how do they keep tenants and what are the services that they provide to do so. I think that there are plenty of owners and buildings that are a lot closer or like are hitting it on the head. And so I think that there are opportunities that are going to come fast and furious at us to help support the owners that are looking for this. And I mean, this is all fueled by the clients who are asking for it yesterday. And so the clients are already there. It's now up to the whole real estate ecosystem to give them what they want.
That said, I've got a very important question.
Oh boy.
Dramatic pause. My God.
At what point did you become obsessed with The Devil Went Down to Georgia?
Oh, that's a really good question. I worked when I was growing up, I went to a kayaking camp and I then worked at that camp. And one of the very first times I ever went out for karaoke was when I was working at that camp. And it was the first song that I ever experienced doing karaoke. And it just stuck with me ever since.
Was it a how-to kayak, or was it just people kayaking, or what? Building kayaks?
Wait. You're taking off topic. The kayaking is irrelevant, right? If you have not been out with Annie to a bar and seen the amount of joy that comes to her face and her body when that song starts playing, you have to do it anytime you're with her. Pay whatever you have to. We always do to get that song to play because it's a whole nother person takes over.
That is true. Yeah, if you're ever having a bad day.
Yeah.
If you're ever having a bad day, either do jumping jacks or listen to The Devil Went Down to Georgia. I guarantee you your day is going to change.
Yes.
We could actually pull a wider group of people from the industry and have them tell the Devil Went Down to Georgia Annie story.
Nah. We don't need to do that.
We each have our own. We each have our own.
I have mine, and it makes me smile. So she's right.
Yeah, you can't help it. I mean, I love it.
That's why I exist to bring joy to the people. Okay.
We were in Nashville. And I think someone paid $100 to have that song moved to the very top of the set because they wanted to see Annie get excited, and it was well worth it.
I got very excited.
Money well spent.
It was so great talking to you, finally getting you on, finally getting you in one place to have this conversation. And what an honor it was to have whatever variation of Kurt we just got that is so confusing. But podcast Kurt, thank you for joining us as well.
This is Kurt Patrick signing off now. Thank you both. I appreciate your time.
I thank you both. Have a great day. Love y'all.
Bye.